In the distant reaches of the galaxy, where stars gleamed like scattered diamonds across the black canvas of space, the Velthar Dominion held power over countless worlds. Their fleet, a combination of colossal warships and sleek starcruisers, patrolled the void with precision. At the heart of the Dominion's operations was Commander Lyra Voss, a proud and experienced officer. Lyra had led countless campaigns against enemy forces, earning a reputation for her tactical brilliance and unshakable confidence. Yet, despite her success, one thing had always troubled her: the humans. A decade ago, humans had joined the Dominion's ranks as an allied species. They were fragile compared to the towering Veltharians, with their lithe frames and soft skin. Their technology, while functional, lacked the sophistication the Dominion prized. Most Velthar officers treated humans as useful assistants or medics, but never as true warriors. Lyra had always agreed. Humans were fine for small tasks, but battle? That was a Velthar's domain. She had witnessed humans in combat drills, clumsy, unpredictable, and reckless. In her mind, they were better suited for routine chores, not leading a fleet in the chaos of interstellar war. That belief was about to be challenged. The announcement came over the Dominion's command network. A human soldier. Captain Ryan Holt had been assigned to Lyra's ship, the Starflame, as a tactical advisor. Lyra's first reaction was disbelief. A human. Here, she muttered to herself, pacing the command deck. A tactical advisor. They can't even handle a blaster properly, let alone fleet maneuvers. Her second-in-command, a Velthar named Karn Vex, tried to calm her. Commander, humans have shown potential in specialized roles. Perhaps you should give him a chance. Lyra shook her head. Potential does not win wars, Karn, you'll see. He will slow us down, or worse, make mistakes that cost lives. When Captain Ryan Holt arrived, he was calm and composed. He stepped onto the bridge, uniform immaculate, eyes steady and posture relaxed. He was not tall, not imposing, but there was a quiet confidence about him that made Lyra frown. You are the new strategist? She asked sharply, trying to mask her irritation. Yes, Commander, Ryan replied. His voice was even, measured. I was assigned to assist with tactical planning against the Tarkon fleet. Lyra's lips curled into a slight smirk. Humans are not known for strategy. Do your best not to slow us down. Ryan only nodded, his expression unchanging. To Lyra, it was infuriating. This human showed no sign of fear or defiance. Most species would have trembled in front of a Velthar commander, yet he stood tall, silently confident. As the crew prepared for an upcoming engagement with the Tarkon Empire, a ruthless alien species known for brutal efficiency, Lyra observed Ryan quietly. He moved among the officers with a calm focus, studying data panels, reviewing fleet movements, and noting anomalies. Every so often, he would murmur a suggestion to an officer who would pause, consider, and then nod. Lyra could not deny that his observations were precise, but she dismissed it as minor luck or coincidence. That evening, after the crew had finished routine drills and maintenance, Lyra stood alone on the observation deck. She watched the stars, each distant sun a potential battlefield, and allowed herself a moment of quiet. She had spent decades commanding fleets, yet she had never seen the galaxy as chaotic as it truly was. The Tarkons moved unpredictably, striking without warning, leaving destruction in their wake. Perhaps she was too accustomed to predictable enemies, she thought. Footsteps approached, soft but confident. Lyra turned to see Ryan stepping onto the deck. Commander, he said politely, bowing his head slightly. May I join you? She hesitated, then nodded. I suppose you may. I don't usually grant humans access to the observation deck. Ryan smiled faintly. I appreciate that. I find it helps to see the bigger picture before making decisions. Lyra studied him. There was no arrogance in his demeanor, no pretense. Yet something about him unsettled her. Humans were unpredictable, and she hated uncertainty. Do you know why I doubt your kind? She asked, her voice low. You are inexperienced, weak, ill-suited for battle. I have seen humans in drills, and they falter when faced with real danger. Ryan's eyes met hers, steady and calm. Experience is valuable, Commander, but so is perspective. Humans often succeed where others fail because we notice what is overlooked. We adapt. We find solutions under pressure. Lyra raised an eyebrow. Adaptation is fine, but it does not guarantee victory. Perhaps, he said, but sometimes it is enough to survive, and survival is the first step to victory. For a moment, Lyra found herself considering his words. There was logic and yet a confidence that seemed almost reckless. She shook her head, dismissing the thought. Humans were clever, yes, but cleverness alone did not win wars. The next day, the Dominion fleet received intelligence of a Tarkon fleet moving through the Zira expanse, a dense asteroid field notorious for confusing sensors and hiding enemy movements. Lyra called an emergency strategy meeting on the Starflame. The officers gathered around the holographic display and she outlined her plan, a direct intercept, overwhelming the Tarkons with superior firepower. Ryan remained silent, studying the display carefully. Finally, he spoke. "Commander," he said softly, "the Tarkons' path through the expanse is not random. They follow a rotational pattern to confuse sensors. If we predict the pattern and shift our formation into a spiral maneuver, we can minimize their targeting efficiency and strike with precision." Lyra's eyes narrowed. A human instructing a Velthar commander on fleet maneuvers? It was audacious, even insulting. "Explain," she demanded, hiding her rising irritation. Ryan stepped forward, pointing at the holographic projection. "Notice the alternating trajectories. Each rotation compensates for the previous one, which means their sensors are synchronized for specific intervals. By creating a counter pattern, we can force them to misalign their targeting, giving us a tactical advantage." The officers exchanged uncertain glances. Karnvex muttered, "It makes sense, Commander, if the calculations are correct." Lyra's pride bristled. Yet with no other options, she gave the order. "We will follow Captain Holt's plan. Keep shields at maximum and be ready to adjust if needed." The fleet moved cautiously into the Zira expanse. As predicted, the Tarkons' attacks were precise at first, striking at weak points in the formation. But as Ryan's spiral maneuver took effect, the enemy's targeting faltered. Missiles and energy blasts that should have hit their marks veered off course. The Dominion ships regained their composure, and counterattacks struck true. Lyra watched the battlefield unfold. Her initial skepticism began to waver. This human, against all expectations, had read the enemy perfectly. The Starflame and its allies began pushing the Tarkons back. The enemy retreated in confusion, leaving the Dominion fleet victorious. After the battle, silence filled the bridge. The officers were stunned, and for the first time, Lyra found herself speechless. She turned toward Ryan. "You saw that coming?" she asked quietly, almost afraid of the answer. He shrugged, a faint smile on his lips. "Humans are used to fighting with fewer resources, Commander. We learn to read chaos and find patterns where others see randomness." Lyra stared at him, a mixture of astonishment and reluctant respect forming in her chest. Perhaps humans were not as weak as she had thought. Perhaps there was something in their hearts, something unpredictable, that even the most advanced Velthar calculations could not foresee. As the Starflame prepared to continue its patrols, Lyra returned to the observation deck that night. The stars stretched endlessly before her, and she thought of the human standing beside her, quiet, unassuming, yet already proving the impossible. For the first time in her career, Commander Lyra Vos began to doubt her beliefs about humans. One human soldier had shown her a glimpse of potential she could no longer ignore. And deep inside, she wondered, perhaps this was only the beginning. The stars glittered coldly against the darkness of space as the Starflame and its fleet moved cautiously through the Zira expanse. Commander Lyra Vos sat rigidly in her command chair, her fingers drumming lightly on the armrest. The recent victory against the Tarkons had been unexpected, and though her pride prevented her from admitting it aloud, a small part of her mind was reconsidering humans. Captain Ryan Holt, however, seemed entirely composed, as if the victory had been routine. He moved silently among the officers, checking readings, recalculating trajectories, and observing the crew's responses. His calm demeanor contrasted sharply with Lyra's tightly wound tension, and she found herself watching him more than the stars. The peace was brief. Sensors on the Starflame suddenly flared red. The Tarkons were back, emerging from the shadow of a massive asteroid cluster. Their fleet was larger than before, faster and more organized. Alarms blared, echoing through the ship. "Status report," Lyra barked. "Kinetic weapons are incoming," reported Lieutenant Kira, her voice tight with urgency. "Shields at 50%. Hull integrity holding, but they're outmaneuvering us. Divert all power to forward shields and prepare counterfire," Lyra commanded. Her hands moved across the control console with practiced speed. "Target their lead cruisers." "Fire at will," The Starflame's weapons roared, energy beams slicing through the darkness. But the Tarkans were not easily beaten. Their attack was precise, their formation flawless. Missile after missile tore through the fleet's defenses, and several Dominion ships were disabled almost immediately. Lyra's stomach tightened. She had faced Tarkans before, but never like this. Their efficiency was terrifying. Every maneuver she attempted to anticipate their attacks failed. "Commander," Ryan said quietly, stepping beside her. "They are using rotational decoys. Their fleet is designed to create false targets while their main strike force advances." Lyra shot him a sharp look. "Explain." Ryan gestured to the holographic display. "See these points?" He traced lines with his finger. "They rotate in patterns designed to confuse sensors. Your current formation will continue to strike decoys and take unnecessary losses. If we shift our fleet into a spiral defense, the decoys will be ineffective, and our targeting will regain accuracy." "Spiral defense?" Lyra repeated, frowning. "Do you know how dangerous that is? We would expose the flanks, leave ships vulnerable." "True," Ryan said, calm and precise. "But if we don't adapt, we will lose everything. This pattern is the only way to survive their attack and strike back effectively." For a long moment, Lyra hesitated. Her pride bristled at the idea of following a human's advice. And yet, looking at the battle unfolding on the display, she could see the truth. The Tarkans were clever, but even they had predictable flaws. She took a deep breath. "Very well," she said finally, her voice firm. "We follow Holt's plan. Execute spiral formation Delta. All ships adjust immediately." Ryan nodded, returning to his calculations. The fleet shifted. Slowly at first, then with more confidence. The Tarkans' decoys began to fail. Their weapons, aimed at empty points in space, wasted energy and left openings in their lines. The Dominion fleet took advantage immediately, striking with precision. The change was subtle at first, but the effects were immediate. Missiles that should have hit critical systems missed entirely, veering into the asteroid fields. Energy beams that once shredded hulls now grazed harmlessly across empty voids. The Dominion's own weapons found their marks, disabling Tarkan interceptors one by one. Lyra felt a spark of astonishment. The humans' plan worked. She had doubted it at first, but here it was. Proof that strategy was not just strength, but insight and perception. The battle raged for hours. Ryan moved between the tactical consoles and the command bridge, adjusting calculations, predicting enemy moves, and calmly giving orders. Lyra found herself relying on him, her initial skepticism melting into cautious respect. At one point, a Tarkan warship broke through the Dominion's outer defense and headed straight for the Starflame. The ship's massive cannon aimed at the bridge, threatening to destroy the command center. Lyra's heart pounded. "Target that ship," she shouted, overriding fire controls. "Divert all energy to primary weapons." Ryan quickly analyzed the threat. "Commander, don't fire yet. The ship's weapons have a delay in the targeting system. Wait one more second, then fire at its port side." Lyra's instinct screamed to act immediately, but she hesitated. She trusted Ryan. "Now," he commanded. The Starflame's cannons fired with deadly accuracy, striking the Tarkan warship's exposed hull. Explosions rocked the enemy ship and it tumbled out of control, disabled before it could fire. Lyra's eyes widened. She had just witnessed a human predicting an enemy attack more precisely than any Velthar could. When the final Tarkan ship retreated, leaving the battlefield in relative silence, the Dominion fleet assessed the damage. Several ships were heavily damaged, but the losses were far less than expected. Victory had been achieved, not through sheer firepower, but through insight and adaptability. The bridge was quiet except for the hum of systems and the occasional beep of sensors. Lyra leaned back in her chair, her mind racing. She had underestimated humans for decades, and yet here was a human who had saved an entire fleet. Ryan approached her once more. "Commander, the patterns are always there," he said simply. "Even the Tarkans have habits. We just need to see them." Lyra looked at him, finally seeing the determination in his eyes. "I underestimated you," she admitted quietly, almost to herself. "You were correct. Your strategy saved lives today." He nodded, a faint smile on his lips. "It's what humans do. We learn to survive even when others doubt us." For the first time, Lyra felt something unfamiliar. Respect, mingled with awe. Perhaps humans were not weak after all. Perhaps there was something in their hearts that made them more formidable than she had ever imagined. Later that evening, the Starflame resumed its patrol through the Zira expanse. Lyra walked the observation deck alone, the stars stretching endlessly before her. She thought of the battle, of the human who had turned chaos into order. She realized she had been wrong. Humans were not fragile, nor were they unfit for war. They were adaptable, courageous, and clever in ways that even the most disciplined Velthar could not predict. One human had stood before her and changed everything she had believed about their species. The bridge doors opened quietly behind her. Ryan stepped in, his presence calm yet commanding. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he asked, gesturing toward the stars. Lyra nodded, but did not speak immediately. She was still grappling with her newfound understanding. You were extraordinary today," she said finally. "I thought humans were not capable of leading in battle." "I was wrong." Ryan smiled faintly. "Thank you, Commander." "But it wasn't just me. It was the crew as well. We all adapt and support each other. That is how we survive and win." Lyra studied him closely. "It is not just survival, I see. It is bravery and insight. You think in ways I could not have imagined." "Perhaps," he replied calmly. "But thinking is only part of it. Acting on what we see even when others doubt us is what makes a difference." For the first time in her career, Lyra Voss felt a glimmer of humility. She had faced countless enemies, commanded fleets through dangerous battles, and trusted in the superior abilities of her own species. Yet this human had shown her that strength did not always lie in size or technology. Sometimes it lay in heart, perception, and courage, the qualities that made humans unpredictable and, in some ways, extraordinary. The Starflame drifted silently through the expanse, its hull reflecting distant starlight. Lyra stood beside Ryan, both of them gazing at the infinite stars. She knew the galaxy held many more challenges, more enemies, and more battles to come. And yet for the first time she felt a spark of hope. Not just for her fleet, but for humanity. Because now she understood something she had never believed before. Humans could be warriors. And some, like Ryan Holt, could stand tall even against the vast, unyielding darkness of space. As the ship sailed onward, Lyra's mind lingered on the human who had changed her perception so completely. Perhaps this was only the beginning. Perhaps in the vast universe, humans had a role no one had yet imagined. A role that could tip the scales in the war to come. And for the first time, Commander Lyra Voss no longer doubted that a human warrior could rise to meet any challenge, even one that threatened the entire galaxy. The victory over the Tarkon fleet had brought a brief moment of relief to the Dominion. The ships of the Starflame were battered but functional, and the crew was exhausted yet proud. Commander Lyra Voss walked along the deck, observing her officers as they made minor repairs and recalculated patrol routes. Despite the calm, attention lingered in the air. Intelligence reports had indicated Tarkon movements near the Dreelan cluster, a hazardous region filled with asteroid belts and dense radiation clouds. Lyra's thoughts were interrupted by an urgent message. The communications console lit up with a secure transmission. The message was short but alarming. Admiral Vec, Lyra's mentor and one of the most respected commanders in the Dominion, had been captured by the Tarkons. He was being held in a fortress deep within the cluster, a heavily defended asteroid converted into a prison stronghold. Lyra felt a cold weight settle in her stomach. Vec had taught her everything about commanding a fleet, anticipating enemy tactics, and staying calm under pressure. Now he was trapped, and time was critical. She immediately convened a meeting with her officers. "The Council has refused a full-scale assault," Lyra said, frustration evident in her voice. "They claim the risks are too high. But I will not leave Vec to the Tarkons." Lieutenant Kira looked concerned. "Commander, the fortress is nearly impenetrable. Even if we try a stealth mission, the likelihood of survival is low." Ryan Holt, standing silently at the back, finally spoke. "We don't need a full-scale attack. A surgical extraction could work. One ship, careful planning, and a small strike team." Lyra turned sharply to him. "You mean go in alone?" "That's suicidal." "Not alone," Ryan corrected, his calm eyes meeting hers. "With a small team, we minimize detection. We use stealth to reach the holding cells, free the Admiral, and exit before they know we're there. Timing and precision are critical." The room fell silent. The plan was audacious, bordering on impossible, and yet Lyra could not deny that Ryan's calm confidence inspired trust. She studied him closely. Humans were unpredictable, but this one had repeatedly shown insight and bravery beyond expectation. "Very well," she said after a pause. "We will attempt a stealth mission. You will lead it, Captain Holt. I will accompany you." Ryan nodded, acknowledging her decision. "We move quickly, we stay quiet, and we watch each other's backs. That is how we survive." Preparation began immediately. The stealth vessel, a modified shuttle designed to evade detection, was loaded with only the essentials: minimal weapons, hacking tools, and life support packs. Lyra trained her crew to remain silent and follow every signal without question. Ryan ran simulations predicting Tarkon patrol routes, sensor sweeps, and potential ambush points. Every scenario was considered, every possibility accounted for. As the shuttle detached from the starflame, Lyra felt a mix of fear and anticipation. She had faced dangerous missions before, but nothing like this. The Tarkons were ruthless, their security systems advanced. One mistake could mean death or worse, capture. Ryan sat beside her in the pilot's chair, his hand steady on the controls. "Commander, keep calm. Focus on the patterns. We have prepared for this." Lyra clenched her fists, staring out at the dense asteroid field ahead. The fortress loomed in the distance, a massive rock formation bristling with energy turrets and sensor arrays. The Tarkons had designed it to be impossible to breach, relying on both technology and sheer intimidation. As they approached, Ryan gave quiet instructions. "Shields down to avoid detection. Engines at minimal thrust. Follow the path between the radiation clouds. Their sensors will pick up energy spikes, but if we move slowly, we remain invisible." Lyra's heart pounded as the shuttle weaved through the twisting rocks. Every moment was tense, every shadow a potential threat. Suddenly, a sensor alert flared. A patrol ship had detected a minor energy fluctuation. "Adjust course 30 degrees starboard," Ryan whispered. "They may investigate the anomaly, but they won't detect us if we remain silent." The shuttle slipped past the patrol, the vastness of space providing cover. Lyra's hands trembled slightly, not from fear of Ryan, but from awe at his precise calculations. Humans were fragile by nature, yet Ryan moved with a calm courage that surpassed even the best-trained Velthar. Finally, they reached the fortress perimeter. The asteroid's surface was jagged, covered in energy turrets that scanned the void continuously. The only way inside was a narrow maintenance tunnel, barely large enough for the shuttle to pass. "Docking sequence initiated," Ryan said. "We enter quietly, no alarms. No unnecessary movement. Follow my lead." Inside the fortress, the corridors were dark and foreboding. The human team moved silently, using minimal light and soft hand signals. Ryan's leadership was evident. Every step precise, every decision calculated. Lyra followed closely, her confidence in him growing with each moment. They encountered their first obstacle, a patrol of Tarkan guards, heavily armored and armed. Ryan gestured for silence. "Wait for the pattern. They move in intervals. Timing is everything." When the guards stepped into the light at just the right distance, Ryan signaled. They slipped past unnoticed, pressing against walls, using shadows as cover. Lyra marveled at his skill. Most Velthar soldiers would have engaged immediately, relying on brute force, but Ryan relied on intelligence, patience, and precision. As they approached the holding cells, a final challenge awaited, a locked energy barrier shielding Admiral Vek's cell. Ryan examined the control panel, his fingers moving swiftly across a small device. "This is delicate," he whispered. "One wrong move and the alarm triggers." Seconds felt like hours as the barrier began to pulse and hum. Lyra held her breath, watching the human work. Finally, with a soft click, the barrier dissolved. The cell door slid open and Admiral Vek stepped out, weak but alive. Relief washed over Lyra. "Captain Holt," Vek said, his voice hoarse. "I never thought." "Thank you," Ryan nodded calmly. "We have little time. Follow me." The return journey was even more perilous. Tarkon alarms had been triggered in another sector, and reinforcements were converging. Ryan guided the team through a series of maintenance tunnels, hidden alcoves, and shadowed passages. At one point, a patrol nearly caught them. Without hesitation, Ryan shielded Lyra with his body and whispered, "Stay close. Trust me." The patrol passed, oblivious. Lyra's heart pounded, but she realized that she trusted him completely. This human had already saved not only her life, but the life of her mentor. Finally, the shuttle emerged from the asteroid fortress, engines engaging as they left the cluster. The Tarkans were still searching, but Rian's careful planning had kept them invisible. The shuttle accelerated toward the Starflame, carrying the rescued admiral and a team of exhausted but safe humans and Velthars. Back on the ship, Vec was immediately attended to by medics. Lyra watched as he was stabilized, gratitude and relief evident in his eyes. She turned to Ryan, finally acknowledging the truth she had been reluctant to accept. "You were incredible," she said quietly. I misjudged humans. You are brave, intelligent, and precise beyond imagination." Ryan shrugged, a faint smile on his lips. "I just did what was necessary, Commander. Humans often succeed when we adapt and stay focused under pressure. That is our strength." Lyra studied him closely, seeing the calm determination in his eyes. "It's more than just survival," she said. "You plan, you calculate, and yet you act with courage when others would hesitate." "That is remarkable." Ryan's gaze softened. "Sometimes courage is the difference between life and death, and sometimes it is the only way to save others." As the ship resumed its patrol, Lyra found herself reflecting on the events of the past hours. She had always believed humans were fragile, limited, and unfit for true combat, but she had just witnessed one human operate with a level of skill, courage, and ingenuity that rivaled even the greatest Velthar officers. For the first time, Lyra Voss felt a profound respect for the species she had underestimated for so long. One human had not only saved lives but had altered her understanding of strength and strategy. She looked at Ryan, quiet and composed, and realized that humans were more than allies or assistants. They were capable of heroism that even the most disciplined and powerful alien species might not anticipate. The shadows of the asteroid fortress faded behind them, but the memory of what Ryan had accomplished remained vivid in her mind. She had doubted humans, and yet here he was, proof that bravery, intelligence, and heart could stand against overwhelming odds. Lyra's thoughts lingered on one undeniable truth. Humans could be warriors, not by force alone but by vision, courage, and the ability to rise when all others hesitated. And as the Starflame sailed onward, she knew that the galaxy had yet to see the full measure of what humans could achieve. The mission had been dangerous, the odds nearly impossible, yet Ryan had led them all through the shadows and back into light. And in doing so, he had forever changed Commander Lyra Voss's perception of humanity. The Starflame drifted through the edge of the Dreelan cluster, its hull scarred from previous battles. The victory in the asteroid fortress had been a turning point, yet the galaxy was far from safe. Tarkon forces had retreated, but intelligence reports indicated they were regrouping for a larger strike. The Dominion fleet had orders to pursue them cautiously, but Commander Lyra Voss knew that caution alone would not be enough. Lyra stood on the bridge, observing the holographic map of the sector. The fleet's movements were methodical, but her mind was focused on one thing: the Tarkon's next move. Every simulation pointed to an ambush in the Caldara Rift, a narrow region of space filled with unstable radiation storms. The Velthar Council had recommended avoiding it entirely, calling it too dangerous. But Lyra had no intention of retreating when a decisive strike could cripple the Tarkons permanently. "Commander, we are approaching the rift," reported Lieutenant Kira. "Sensors indicate multiple enemy ships ahead. They're faster than predicted." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "Prepare for engagement. Shields up, weapons ready, and maintain formation Delta. Let's see what we're facing." Ryan Holt moved quietly to the tactical console, his calm presence contrasting the tension that gripped the bridge. "Commander," he said, "if we engage directly, the Tarkons will exploit the storm's radiation to mask their attacks. Their speed advantage will overwhelm us. I suggest a different approach." Lyra raised an eyebrow. "Go on." "They will follow us if we retreat slightly into the storm," Ryan explained. "I can calculate a path that forces their fleet into a trap, using the radiation storm to disable their targeting systems. It's risky, but it gives us control." Lyra hesitated. Risky was an understatement. A miscalculation could destroy the fleet, yet she had learned from experience that Ryan's instincts were rarely wrong. She nodded slowly. "Do it," she said. "Take control of tactical maneuvers." The fleet adjusted its course, moving deliberately into the heart of the Caldara Rift. The storm raged around them, waves of electromagnetic interference distorting sensors and communications. The Tarkons, confident in their speed and weaponry, pursued relentlessly. Ryan's fingers flew over the console, recalculating trajectories in real time. Maintain shields at 60%, he instructed. Divert power to engines in bursts to counter gravitational anomalies. Wait for my signal before firing. Lyra's stomach tightened. This was more than a test of skill. It was a test of trust. She had to rely on a human, something she had never imagined herself doing. Minutes stretched into eternity as the fleet navigated the storm. The Tarkons closed in, their weapons charging and firing with deadly precision. Energy beams slashed across the void, tearing apart a Dominion cruiser before anyone could react. Alarms blared and the bridge shook with the force of nearby explosions. Hold steady, Ryan commanded, voice calm amidst chaos. Adjust port shields by 5 degrees now. The Starflame veered smoothly, narrowly avoiding a destructive blast. Lyra watched in astonishment as her human strategist guided them through the storm, with an almost supernatural sense of timing. Every maneuver was precise, every calculation accurate. Fire on my mark, Ryan continued. 3, 2, 1. Now! The Dominion fleet unleashed a coordinated volley, targeting the Tarkons' weakest points. The storm interfered with their sensors, causing their attacks to miss. Explosions erupted across the enemy formation and the balance of power shifted. The Tarkons were caught off guard, their speed and strength rendered useless by Ryan's strategy. Lyra felt a surge of pride, not in herself, but in the human before her. Captain Ryan Holt had taken a chaotic battlefield and transformed it into an opportunity. The fleet moved like a single organism, flowing around hazards, striking with precision, and evading enemy fire with astonishing agility. Despite the success, danger was far from over. The Tarkons were retreating, but not without attempting a last desperate strike. A massive warship broke formation and charged directly at the Starflame, its cannons glowing with destructive energy. Shields at 20%, Lieutenant Kira shouted. They're too close. Ryan analyzed the threat in an instant. Commander, trust me. Divert engines to full power. We'll use the storm's magnetic flux to our advantage. Lyra's eyes widened. You want to fly into the storm? Yes, we can force their weapons to overload. Follow my calculations exactly. Do it, Lyra said, heart pounding. The Starflame surged forward, cutting through the storm. The magnetic flux distorted energy weapons, causing the Tarkon warship's main cannon to misfire. Explosions rocked the enemy ship as it attempted to correct, but it was too late. The fleet followed Ryan's lead, striking with relentless precision. One by one, Tarkon ships fell, disabled or destroyed by the Dominion's coordinated assault. The battle raged for hours, each second a delicate dance of strategy, courage, and timing. Lyra observed her human strategist with growing admiration. Ryan was not just clever. He was fearless, calm under pressure, and able to turn even the most desperate situations into opportunities. Finally, the last Tarkon ship disengaged, retreating into the void. The Caldera Rift was silent, the storm settling into a quiet hum. The Dominion fleet had survived, victorious but battered. Lyra exhaled, her body trembling from the tension. She turned to Ryan, unable to hide the respect in her eyes. You did it, she said softly. You saved the fleet. You turned what could have been a disaster into a complete victory. Ryan shook his head. We saved it together. Every officer and crew member followed the plan. Humans do not succeed alone. We rely on teamwork as much as courage. You were extraordinary, Lyra said, her voice firmer now. Your calculations, your decisions. You risked everything and never wavered. I have underestimated your kind for too long. Ryan smiled faintly. It is easy to underestimate humans, Commander. We are often overlooked because we are small, fragile, or unpredictable. But we adapt, we endure, and we act when others hesitate. Lyra felt a deep sense of understanding. She had witnessed human courage in countless situations before, but this was different. The human before her had faced impossible odds, guided a fleet through chaos, and achieved victory where conventional wisdom predicted defeat. As the fleet repaired and regrouped, Lyra visited the observation deck. The stars stretched endlessly across the void, reflecting in her eyes. She thought of Ryan, quiet and unassuming, yet capable of acts that would become legend among the Dominion. Commander, Ryan said, joining her quietly, the fleet is safe for now, but the Tarkons will regroup. The galaxy will not remain peaceful. I know, she replied, but after today I understand something I did not before. Humans Humans are not weak. They can stand even when everything seems lost. They can turn chaos into order. Ryan's gaze met hers. And sometimes that is the most valuable strength of all. Lyra nodded. The galaxy was vast and dangerous, but she now knew that the human before her, Captain Ryan Holt, was capable of facing any challenge. Courage, ingenuity, and heart had proven more powerful than she could have imagined. The fleet continued its patrol, moving through star systems with renewed confidence. Tales of the Caldara Rift battle would spread, but only Lyra truly understood the measure of the human who had led them through it. A warrior in every sense of the word, not because of brute strength, but because of vision, bravery, and the ability to act decisively when the moment demanded it. For the first time, Commander Lyra Vos no longer questioned humanity's place in the galaxy. One human had proven that courage and intelligence could stand against the most formidable enemies, and she knew this was only the beginning. The stars stretched endlessly before them, full of challenges yet to come, and as the starflame sailed onward, Lyra silently promised herself, no human or any being would be underestimated again. The galaxy had witnessed the resolve of a human warrior, and it would never forget it. The galaxy seemed quieter now, at least for a time. The Caldara Rift battle and the daring rescue of Admiral Vec had shifted the balance in the Dominion's favor. Tarkon forces were scattered, recovering from losses that had shocked even their most experienced commanders. But while the fleets repaired and strategies were recalculated, a quieter story unfolded on the deck of the Starflame, one of human courage, vision, and leadership that would ripple across the Dominion for years to come. Commander Lyra Vos walked through the ship's corridors, observing her officers and crew as they returned to routine. The damage from the recent battles was being repaired, and morale had never been higher. Yet Lyra's thoughts were not on repairs or patrols. They were on the human who had changed everything, Captain Ryan Holt. She found him on the observation deck, standing quietly before the vast expanse of stars. The human's posture was relaxed, almost casual, yet there was an air of quiet authority about him that had earned the respect of the entire fleet. Lyra approached silently, noting the way he studied the distant galaxies as if measuring them for future possibilities. "You've been quiet," Lyra said softly, not startling him. Ryan turned slightly, offering a faint smile. "I find it helps to reflect after a battle, to consider what went right and what could be improved." "You saved lives," Lyra said, her voice carrying the weight of respect. "Not just ours, but the Admiral's. You guided the fleet through chaos, through impossible odds, and succeeded." Ryan's smile remained calm. "We all contributed, Commander. Courage is shared. Strategy is only as strong as the people who follow it." Lyra studied him for a long moment. "You are not like any human I have ever known," she admitted. "And perhaps not like any human the Dominion has known." Ryan looked out at the stars again. "Perhaps not. But that is how humans are. We are underestimated because we are small, fragile, and unpredictable. And yet that is also why we endure. We think, we adapt, and we act when others hesitate." The word struck Lyra. For decades she had believed humans were weak, ill-prepared for true warfare. Yet she had witnessed a human lead with courage, foresight, and calm under pressure. One human had stood before her, and it had been enough to change her perception entirely. News of the Caldara Rift battle and the asteroid fortress rescue spread quickly through the Dominion. Fleet officers spoke in hushed tones about the human strategist who had led a successful operation against overwhelming odds. Admirals and council members, initially skeptical, began to recognize that humanity was not merely a minor ally, but a species capable of extraordinary feats. Despite the attention, Ryan refused medals or accolades. He accepted only the gratitude of those he had saved. "I did what was necessary," he told Lyra quietly. "That is all." But the recognition was inevitable. The story of his actions began to circulate, growing with every retelling. Officers spoke of the human who had read Tarkon tactics as if they were an open book. Crew members whispered about the calm bravery that had guided them through storms, battles, and shadows. And slowly, across the Dominion, the legend of a human warrior began to take shape. Lyra watched these developments with a mixture of pride and humility. She had once doubted humans, laughed at the idea that they could influence a battle at the scale of interstellar fleets. Now she understood that human strength was not measured in size or technology alone. It was measured in courage, insight, and the ability to rise to challenges no one else dared confront. One evening, Lyra found herself again on the observation deck. The stars stretched endlessly before her. Ryan joined her, his presence quiet but reassuring. "The fleet will remain on alert," Lyra said, her voice thoughtful. "The Tarkons will return and we must be ready. But I feel different, confident because of you." Ryan nodded. "Confidence is necessary, Commander. But vigilance is also required. The galaxy does not pause for anyone." "I have learned something crucial," Lyra admitted. "I used to believe humans were fragile, unfit for war. But now I see. It is not about strength alone. It is about heart, courage, and adaptability. That is what makes a warrior. That is what makes a human special." Ryan looked at her, his calm eyes reflecting distant stars. "You have seen it firsthand. Humans often succeed where others fail, because we do not give up. Even when all odds are against us, that is our strength." Silence fell between them for a moment, not uncomfortable but reflective. Both understood that the universe was vast, full of dangers yet unseen, and filled with possibilities that could challenge even the bravest. Yet, they had faced impossible odds together, and survived. Days turned into weeks as the fleet continued patrols and repair missions. Lyra observed Ryan as he quietly advised officers, refined fleet formations, and trained the human contingent. His leadership was subtle, rarely seeking attention but always effective. Even Velthar officers, once skeptical, now sought his guidance, learning from his ability to adapt and see patterns others missed. One afternoon, the Fleet Council convened to discuss upcoming strategies. The room was filled with the most powerful leaders of the Dominion. Lyra, standing at the head of the table, spoke with unusual clarity and authority. "I must make one thing clear," she said firmly. "The Caldera Rift battle and the Asteroid Fortress rescue were successes not because of me, but because of Captain Ryan Holt. A human warrior led these operations, showing courage, insight, and leadership that rivals even the best among us. We must recognize this, and we must ensure that humans are no longer underestimated." The council members, initially hesitant, nodded in agreement. Whispers turned into acknowledgement and acknowledgement into praise. Humanity had gained a place in the Dominion not merely as allies, but as capable warriors whose courage and intelligence could change the course of battles. After the meeting, Lyra returned to Ryan, who was quietly observing the fleet from the balcony. "You've changed everything," she said. "Not just for me, but for the Dominion as a whole. Humans will now be respected, even feared in ways I never imagined." Ryan smiled faintly. "It is not about respect or fear, Commander. It is about proving that courage and insight matter, that we can act when others doubt us. That is how humans thrive." Lyra nodded, a sense of understanding and admiration filling her. "You've shown me that strength is not always measured in size or firepower. Sometimes it is measured in heart, vision, and the courage to act when no one believes in you. You have done more than I ever expected." Ryan's expression softened. "Then perhaps that is enough for now. We can continue to serve, to protect, and to act when needed. That is our duty." As the Starflame sailed onward through uncharted regions, Lyra found herself reflecting on the journey that had brought her here. She had doubted humans, dismissed them, and assumed they were unfit for true combat. Yet she had seen one human stand against impossible odds, lead a fleet through chaos, and achieve victory where even seasoned commanders might have failed. The galaxy was vast, full of dangers yet unseen. But now Lyra understood something that changed her forever. Humans were warriors in every sense of the word, not because of raw power or technology, but because of courage, ingenuity, and the ability to act decisively when the moment demanded it. Stories of the human strategist began to spread beyond the Dominion fleet. Across colonies, stations, and allied worlds, whispers of the human warrior circulated. Some doubted, as skeptics always do, but many believed. And among those who had witnessed Ryan Holt's deeds firsthand, there was no doubt humans could rise to any challenge, no matter how great. Lyra often visited the observation deck, gazing at the stars and thinking of the human who had reshaped her understanding of the universe. One evening, Ryan joined her as usual, quiet and contemplative. "You've become a legend," she said softly, almost in awe. "I do not seek legend," he replied. "I only do what must be done. But perhaps by acting when others hesitate, a story will be told. And perhaps it will inspire others to rise too." Lyra smiled faintly. "It already has. You've changed the way the Dominion sees humanity, and you've changed the way I see it as well. I will never underestimate a human again." Rian looked at her, eyes reflecting the light of distant suns. "And that, Commander, is all any of us can ask for. To be seen for what we are and to rise when it matters most." The Starflame continued its patrols, a silent sentinel among the stars. And in the hearts of those who witnessed the courage and brilliance of Captain Ryan Holt, the legend of a human warrior was born. One human had stood tall, unafraid, and unwavering, and in doing so, had inspired an entire galaxy to recognize that humanity was capable of greatness beyond measure. And so, the tale of bravery, insight, and human courage spread across the stars. One warrior, one human had changed everything. And for Commander Lyra Voss, the memory of standing beside him, seeing the impossible made possible, would never fade.